Hello and welcome to the Off the Party Line podcast with me, your host, Mark Williams, and I'm joined today by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Peter Farrington. Peter, how are you doing?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing well. Today, I just pulled any random shirt out of the wardrobe, and I was glad to get here and realize it was different to the one from last time. So
It is different to the last
zero
one,
thought
isn't
into
it?
it.
Zero thought. I mean, you're
Zero
just
thought.
effortlessly cool, Peter. I mean, to be fair, your sartorial choices for podcasts are definitely better than mine. I've had to improve mine. I did realize after we recorded episode 1 that I was wearing shorts and I've got a glass table. So all of our first ever viewers got to see my knees. So if you missed episode 1, you can go and see my knees. That'll be there for you. So episode 2, Peter, we've got some exciting topics to talk about, some interesting topics. We've got a bit of free speech that we're going to talk about a little bit later on, and the state of free speech in Britain, potentially quite concerning state of free speech. But first, we're going to watch and react to a clip of NT Wright. Have you heard of NT Wright before?
I have, yeah. I haven't actually listened to him much or read anything of his, but I've heard a lot of good things from other people.
Yeah.
Actually, just the other day, someone was telling me about how his work on the resurrection had a big impact on them coming to faith.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's cool. So we talked about the resurrection last time. So if you missed episode 1, do go back and watch it. We talked about the evidence for the resurrection and that we believe it. So does NT Wright. So NT Wright is an Anglican theologian, and he does, I guess it's a podcast, but he partners with Premier Unbelievable. So it's Justin Briley, I think, normally on Premier Christian Radio. It's not Justin Briley on this one, but NT Wright's being interviewed, and it's a segment called Ask NT Wright Anything. And he is being asked in this section about abortion and whether that can be ever acceptable.
Yeah. So I think that the person wrote in saying that it didn't feel obvious to them why it should never be acceptable. And so, yeah, we'll find out what his response was. Yeah,
we will. So let's go through this. So we've got NT Wright here on his Premier Unbelievable Ask NT Wright Anything. This episode they're talking about, is abortion ever justified? Can Lucifer be forgiven? We're not going to touch on that one, but let's just see what he's got to say.
But then when it's presented as you are murdering an unborn child, I think we do have to be very, very careful. And I've had personal experience of this with a close family member where soon after the couple discovered that they were pregnant, or the wife was pregnant, then it also became apparent that the wife had been accidentally exposed to German measles, rubella. Now, as we know, that exposure to German measles can result in serious deformities in the womb, etc., etc. And the GP in that case, who was a devout Christian GP, said, we're going to do the tests, and if she has been exposed to rubella, if there's a threat of serious defamation or whatever, then we will recommend termination.
Okay, so that's the setup. So an interesting scenario. I say interesting, I mean very tragic.
Yeah, extraordinarily difficult.
So a very difficult case. So these are the kind of cases that, we really do need to talk about, particularly when we're talking about abortion legislation. And these are undoubtedly hard cases. So we've got a few things in here. It's a personal story. It's a close family friend. He's hit a few notes here that I've picked up. So close family friend. We've got a very hard case of rubella, which not necessarily going to lead to death, but deformity is what he's saying. And did you notice the devout Christian GP?
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's important to note, straight out of the gate, we've gone straight to experience. And I understand that he's wanting to engage with people's stories and that there'll be many people listening to him speak to this video who will have experienced really, really difficult things in regards to pregnancies but he and I think he used the words, didn't he, talking about terminating pregnancy. We've also at the same time got to be able to use clarity in language. and he talks about being careful, and we really have to be careful with I know he was saying being careful in regards to I think not using terms like murdering a child, but we do have to be careful that we are actually calling a spade. Like what is the nature of this?
Yeah, I think the nature of what he's saying, to be careful about here, if I'm going to give him the most charitable interpretation, which I think is fair enough in this instance, is that when we are talking to about, close family, friends, loved ones, you're obviously not going to go in with hard language. These are difficult cases. Where obviously this becomes a bit fraught is that NT Wright is a public figure, and he has a following. He is doing a public podcast. So let's watch a little bit more and see where we get to.
And I remember my heart in my mouth when I heard that and thinking, do I really agree with that? But at the time, it was absolutely clear for the mental health, never mind anything else, of the mother and the potential father as well, that this was the way to go. In fact, all was well. The rubella had not actually done what it sometimes might do, and that child was born perfectly healthy. And
okay, so that's obviously great news. The child did not have rubella, was born perfectly healthy. So in this particular situation, all has gone well. What we have to wonder here is, well, sometimes it doesn't go that way. And in this situation, given, and again, we hear just the sprinkling of some more terms that we do get used to in this conversation. Had that test come back the wrong way, what would have happened in that scenario?
Well, and also the fact that he's gone from first talking about deformity, now he's introduced the mental health of the mother. So we're 30 seconds into this clip, I don't know, and already the exceptions, I suppose, that he's talking about has broadened.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if he goes any further.
We will, yeah. So as you say, it does slightly slip here. So this, I imagine NT Wright would suggest that this is an obvious case where this would cause mental health distress to the mother. Mm-hmm. I think we probably all agree that it would. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Certainly has the strong potential to. However, mental health of the mother is generally used very broadly in these situations, and not just in situations like this. I think in Wright's head, he's going, well, no one could possibly argue in this situation. Whether or not that's true, what we have to be careful of is that justification doesn't spread further. Yeah. And of course, we have seen that justification does spread very widely on this issue. So we'll listen to him speak a little bit further, and then we'll comment again.
Grown up now, etc. This was a long time ago, but that made me very sensitive about the fact that there are many, many cases where it is about the mother's health versus the health of the child or whatever, and particularly that, as you cited, in cases of rape or in cases of incest, there may be a very, very strong argument for saying this ought never to have happened, and with sorrow, because we do not want to do this in principle, but with sorrow and a bit of shame, the best thing to do is as soon as possible to terminate this pregnancy.
Okay, so we get at the end there, the terminate the pregnancy language. Yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
So, in addition to this, I think that there will be a banner right beneath this. If you're watching this in the UK on YouTube, there will be an NHS taxpayer funded, I suppose, banner beneath the video explaining to us all what an abortion is. And I think it uses very similar language to end a pregnancy, I think.
Well, we would encourage you to go and read it. So this is going to be on YouTube. We assume most of our viewers are going to watch this in the UK. So read what the NHS says. I do think actually on YouTube, if you're in America, it will show an American version, and wherever you are in the world, it'll show you that version. I do encourage people to read it. Yeah. They should read it. They should click the links. They should go and see it.
Yeah. And you'll see the same thing on any video about abortion.
Yeah, just to be clear, for those of you who don't know, I mean, I don't necessarily know how the YouTube algorithm works fully, but it will have picked up the words that we're using and it will automatically put that banner underneath. That's not something that we put there.
And I've just got such an issue with it because so if you were, let's say that I was to bomb a cinema, just go with me for a minute, and there was a movie in progress at the same time, and I blew up the cinema, but I spoke about it as if I couched it all in language of no, I'm not blowing up a cinema, I'm just finishing the movie. That would be completely false use of language, because you can finish a movie by watching the movie to the end, and it's the same thing here. To say that I know pregnancy is a process and a cinema is a location, but in terms of the use of language, it's the same. There's another way to end a pregnancy besides abortion, and it's called childbirth. And so this is so misleading, and for our National Health Service to put that banner beneath a video and for a theologian to use the same language.
I think
It's
that's
incredible.
where we're getting to here. So, NT Wright as a theologian. Now, he mentioned a few things there. He said, with sorrow and a little bit of shame. Now, if you believe that you're doing the right thing, I don't understand the need for sorrow or shame. Now, I know that there are probably instances that people could name where you might do something that you just regrettably have to do. I guess a lot of wartime sort of analogies would probably come under that category. And the difficult thing here is I would imagine that NT Wright believes that it is a baby. So it's not like we're having this, it's not like we're commenting on, a very extreme far left sort of, it is a clump of cells until it physically exits the body. It's almost easier to have that argument with that kind of person, because actually the distinction is quite clear. It's obvious where we have drawn the line and they have drawn the line. And so it really does just come down to a disagreement on what is the occupant of the womb. And it does make it more straightforward. However, in this situation, he is grappling with this great moral question. And in my view, he's getting very muddled.
All over the place.
He's all over the place. And I don't understand how the exceptions he calls out, for instance, are things that should never have happened. And in those instances, we agree those are horrible. Well, one of them is definitely a horrible thing. The other one we'll come back to in another episode. I'd love to challenge a liberal on what, in their worldview, is wrong with incest. I know why it's wrong in my worldview, but what is actually wrong with incest in the liberal worldview? We'll come to that another day. Rape is the hard case. Always is, always has been. We know it's a small number of abortions, but we acknowledge that that's the hard case. Now, in these hard cases, so he's saying potential deformity with rubella, rape, incest, and he says as soon as possible.
Yes. That's the key phrase.
Why as soon as possible? Because we
all know what is in the womb. We all know it. He knows, but he can't actually speak with clarity about it because it undermines his entire argument. His entire position falls apart.
Yeah, and I think he is reacting to what many of us will react to, which is he knows he's going to get shouted at for being clear on this. He knows he's going to get hated. He knows that he's going to take a lot of flack for it, and he doesn't want that. Now, to be clear, I want to be careful. I'm not accusing NT Wright of being disingenuous. I don't think he's being disingenuous, but I do think to a certain level he's operating out of fear here. Because the level to which he has thought this through compared to what I would expect of a theologian who thinks deeply about these issues is seriously lacking.
Oh, yeah. It is astonishing. It's astonishing.
Yeah. Let's watch a little bit more and we'll react.
Now, I've seen the debates. I've read books about the debates as to at what point it's okay, or at what point it becomes not okay. And I know that in my own country, people have pushed for the legislation to be allowed to say right up to the moment before the woman is ready to give birth, that if they decide for whatever reason on an abortion, then that's okay. And that I find not only wrong but repulsive.
Right. So this was recorded just weeks before legislation did go through in the UK that had an amendment in it which did not legalize abortion up to the point of birth, but decriminalized it.
Yeah.
Which, as far as I'm concerned, is the same thing.
Yeah.
If you're not going to punish a criminal, it is decriminalized. If you are not going to punish what we have agreed as a society is a wrong thing to do, then what is the point in even having it as codified as a wrong thing to do? So that happened not long after this, and I wonder what he would have said about that. It was actually snuck through as well. Even people who were aware of this issue didn't even really realize it was happening until then. But the one thing I want you to pick up on, Pete, there is he says, if it does get to that point, that would be abhorrent.
So why would it be abhorrent, and what's the moral difference between it being 40 weeks gestation or after birth? What's the moral difference between that one day old and an embryo in the an embryo, a fetus? It's an arbitrary distinction wherever you draw the line. Size of development, the location. He has his entire argument is built on nothing, and you can just see it collapsing.
I think the line of birth is something we should probably discuss another time. It's a really interesting point, and it rebuts a lot of, I think, the liberals' arguments. Given that Wright is coming from this and I'm going to be, again, I'm trying to be as generous as I can, reasonably conservative point of view from the general argument point of view, but from a Christian point of view, this is very liberal.
Mm-hmm.
Because my question to him would be, okay, you're saying that it would be repulsive and abhorrent to allow an abortion late term. So I'm assuming let's call that 35 to 40 weeks. That's the last 5 weeks of gestation. Well, let's go back to his scenario. The mother finds out at 36 weeks that the child has rubella.
Yeah.
Or the child is deformed somehow. He or she is alive. They're developing. What if you find out, or wider family finds out, that it was an incestuous relationship that produced this child?
Yeah.
At 36 weeks. Then what?
What if the victim of rape changes her mind?
Right.
As it gets closer and closer to birth.
What would his response be? Because at that point, I imagine, again, to be charitable, I think he would say, well, at that point, you can't do an abortion. At which point I go, so why was it okay earlier? What was the difference between the two? And they'll say development. Well, I don't care.
Right. And interestingly, he's still not turned to scripture. Like the theologian who's answering a question about abortion on a Christian radio station, and he's not yet turned. I understand he's wanting to be careful. He's not wanting to unnecessarily upset people about, on what is an extremely sensitive topic. I get that, but why are you there? Why are you being, why are you answering this question if if you're not going to bring that to the table at any point.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Let's carry on.
Because if you wait till the child's been born and then say, well, we didn't really want a girl this time, so we'll just get rid of her, then that would be a criminal act, and quite rightly so.
Okay, right. But did you notice there that he changed from a serious, genuine moral quandary to a situation where actually most people would agree that would be wrong? There are some nutters, Peter. You will be amazed to hear who would say after birth, for whatever reason, fine. We'll call them the fringe. But they do exist, and, fringes have a tendency to grow. But we'll leave that as the fringe for now. But what I would say is, well, if a woman at 6 weeks gestation found out that it was a girl and said, I don't want this girl. So, okay?
Yeah, well, the whole reason is it's just arbitrary, all of it. Wherever you slide this point along throughout the 9 months, he's still not actually addressing the issue of what is the moral difference between a child in the womb and a child outside the womb.
Because again, when he shifts to there's two things in each one of these, right? There's the gestation level and or birthdays, days of actual life outside the womb. Often we're talking about that as well, which is horrifying, but we have to, against cases and situations, right? So there's always these two things in every conversation. In this one, he wanted rubella at an early stage, and then later he wants to go late stage gender,
right?
To go, well, that's an easy and obvious one.
Yeah,
that's an easy and obvious one. My point is always, hang on, let's put rubella alongside 40 weeks. Let's put rubella or deformity that you had not noticed until the child was born. They are born, they are breathing, but they are seriously deformed. Now what?
Yeah.
Is NT Wright okay with slaughtering the child? Surely not.
Yeah, it's just so confused. And my heart really breaks for like the person who's genuinely asked this question, people who are genuinely wanting to hear his answer and then, biblical answer to the question. And they're, maybe all they're getting from the culture is, these NHS banners telling that it's just a procedure to end a pregnancy. And the whole conversation is shrouded in euphemism. And yeah, like you said, this dance between different cases, that, the difficult cases and jumping around throughout gestation and then moving back as soon as your argument doesn't quite work. My heart really does break for people. These are obviously it's a life and death, and people in real life situations needing clarity and just not getting any.
Yeah, these are not easy situations, and we do not in any way have this conversation lightly.
No.
To say, well, it's obvious what you should do in all situations. Now, after deep thought and a lot of consideration, I would hope that most people would come to what I would consider to be the correct conclusion. A lot of people struggle to get there. Okay, that's fine. But as I say, the lack of depth of moral clarity here, it just smacks of a lack of deep thinking, and he's hitting all the boxes that the liberals would love. And whenever that happens from a theologian, my antenna go up. And I go, what's the motivation behind this? I'm not accusing him of nefarious motivation, but you do have to wonder. Let's carry on a little bit.
Would be murder, and it would be a pagan thing. This is something we must never forget, that in the ancient world, people regularly, when they had a child they didn't want, especially if it was a girl, they left that poor child out for the wolves or the gypsies or whoever to take and do with what they wanted. The early Judeans didn't do that. The early Christians didn't do that because they valued every human being. Likewise, there were techniques of abortion in the ancient world. In fact, quite often when a woman was pregnant and the father didn't want that woman to be pregnant, the father might insist that the woman should have an abortion, which in those days was possible but often very dangerous. They would take certain drugs or have certain rather invasive medical procedures, and it makes me shudder at the thought of it. In other words, all that sort of thing went on in the ancient pagan world, and the Judeans and the Christians wouldn't have anything to do with it. Thank you.
Okay, the early Christians wouldn't have anything to do with it. Why would modern Christians?
Yeah, it's a pagan practice, but sometimes, although with deep sorrow and shame, we might have to do pagan things.
Again, it's just morally confused. He wants to talk about how, the Christians and the Judeans would essentially draw a line between themselves and the wider pagan cultures by the practices of how they valued human life. And notice he said there, every human life. Well, hang on just a second, NT Wright. Not 1 minute ago, you were talking about a deformed person. And in your view, with maybe sorrow and a bit of shame, you were okay with a deformed yet living human being being destroyed.
Or a child who is the result of rape and is then being punished for the crimes of the father. Does that human being have value?
Or should that father have the right to do what the pagans did? And he says he shudders to think about the invasive procedures that the women would go through. I have to say, NT Wright, I've got a bit of news for you. It hasn't advanced that far. And I have to say, we're obviously not going to be able to show anything like that on YouTube. However, I would encourage our viewers to go and look at what an abortion actually consists of, particularly in the midterm and the late term. The late term, let me just tell you, if you are not strong of stomach, don't. If you can cope with it, please go and watch it. Go and understand what's actually happening in these scenarios. Because if NT Wright, Peter, is going to say to us that he shudders at the thought, I don't think he understands what an abortion is and what has to happen in order for that to be successful.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, the whole thing's been shrouded in euphemism for so long that, we can hardly even remember what it is that we're talking about when, it's just a clump of cells or reproductive justice, whatever that means. And though he's not used, any terms like that, he's still staying very, very far away from actually acknowledging the fact that there is a victim in abortion. And I understand that, I get why the difficult cases get brought up like immediately, but we do have to remember that there is a victim and that we do actually need to face the reality of what is being done to the victim. And I would urge you to watch it. I mean, it's not particularly easy to find, but I think like it is essential to watch it so that you can actually, I think it just keeps you from talking around the subject instead of actually recognizing that there is a victim, that it is a valuable, unique human being in the womb.
Not just that there is a victim, but the victim is a victim of really quite egregious, horrendous violence.
Yeah, at literally the most vulnerable stage of its life.
again, if you've not thought this through before, I actually don't blame people really for not thinking this through, for just thinking about it at the high level. But I would encourage you to go and see, because it's absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it's grisly.
It's a gruesome, gruesome thing to do. And if you're going to support it, you ought to know what you're supporting. So let's carry on.
Very much. And I think that shows us the way that in principle, this is not something which we should welcome. It is not something which we should collude with. At the same time, there may be certain exceptions, of which severe deformity might be one, of which certainly incest and rape would be others.
Okay. Deformity might be one. I would very much encourage him to justify that.
Mm.
Why this interviewer, by the way, is not pushing back on him, I don't know. He obviously agrees. But that, for me, is the obvious question. Why is it only a maybe? And therefore, what are the conditions? There are plenty of deformed people, either born deformed or have become deformed through their life. Is that license to kill?
Yeah.
Well, even he would say no, but therefore that's muddled thinking. But then he says, certainly rape and incest would be one.
Right.
Certainly.
Right. I think it's a very high percentage of victims of rape who go full term. It's a very high percentage of those women who actually look back and think, I'm so glad that I had that baby. I can't remember the statistics, but it's really high. And
Wow.
and yet he's arguing for the opposite. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it is the hard case, and it's something that we can go into a bit more depth on another time, because I'm sure anyone watching this is probably screaming at us through the screen.
But just quickly, so what is rape? Like, if you
definitionally,
definitionally, yeah.
Well, the forced sexual using of another's body without their consent.
Yeah. So
violation of someone else's body without their consent.
Right. And using your position or superior
and actually,
strength, or
in the UK, I'm assuming it is similar around the world, but legally, as a definition, it is a male on it's a male on either a female or another male.
Right. So we have to think about why rape is wrong, and it is a violation of, it's someone using their body, their position, superior strength, or whatever, to violate another person's body. So if rape is wrong, why is abortion sometimes permissible? Why can it be? Why is it always being used as this, victims of rape being used as a pawn to try and win an argument for something which definitionally is very similar? Like, you could put it within the same category of a violation.
Yeah, I mean, that crime is, I often think of that crime as worse than murder. The damage it does to women.
Yeah.
And men are raped as well, to a much lesser extent. But when you think about women, and obviously the potential consequence for a woman is pregnancy.
Yeah.
That crime is so egregious and so horrible. I don't want anyone to in any way listen to us and think that we are downplaying it. Frankly, I bow to no one in the punishment I would mete out to someone we could convict beyond reasonable doubt of that crime.
Yeah, it's like, if someone can argue for a punishment, we'd argue for any punishment, we'd argue for a harsher one.
Put it this way, liberals, if I had my way, they wouldn't be in jail. Let's put it that way. Jail would not be the consequence if I had my way. So let's just have it right. We are not diminishing that crime. Now, we'll probably talk about that another time, but just to be completely clear, that we have to separate the emotion of that, the reaction to a crime like that, to, well, then what if a baby is produced? So let's finish this clip off.
And in those cases, I would say the sooner the better, because at a certain point, and I am not medically qualified to say at what point I would draw a line, then this is a viable human being that should then be cherished.
Hang on. Again, why would you need a medical qualification? You are a theologian.
Yeah.
You should have a moral qualification at least.
Yeah, he's lost his theologian hat. Because immediately I'm thinking...
Because he is willing to say at late term, that's unconscionable.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. Where's your PhD in biology, Dr. Wright?
Yeah. But so this is where the entire gospel completely falls apart. Because if we just go along with his argumentation, as muddled as it is, it would mean that at some point it was possible that Jesus was fully God, but perhaps not fully man, or fully God and fully man, but not yet a whole person. And so Jesus could never have been the perfect sacrifice who represented us as one of us before the Father, right? The entire gospel just collapses, and he's somehow not thought through the implications of what he's saying. Or I don't want to speculate on his motivations or whatever, but was there a point, like how did Mary and Joseph know at what point they were to consider this thing in the womb as a life that's valuable and worth keeping? It's absolutely incredible.
Do you think being the Son of God could be considered a deformity? What about only having half human?
Yeah.
You got to be very, very careful with these arguments. And I think particularly, and we'll come back to this in another episode, but when you apply a lot of these arguments, and to be fair, not necessarily NT Wright's arguments, probably more on the liberal end of things, to Jesus and Mary, as a Christian, my goodness me, they fall apart quick. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I said we were going to finish it, but I interrupted. Let's finish it off.
And I know from experience with my own children before they were born of being aware that they were aware in the womb of noises, of pressure, of all sorts of things. And that the more we know about psychology, the more it really does appear that some of the impressions which are given to this child in the womb will re-emerge as their children and as they grow up. So we're not just talking about some inert lump of matter which we can just get rid of as we please. So the whole debate about the woman's rights, it's very difficult. It's very hard for a man to talk about this. And indeed, one of the problems has been, particularly in the Roman Catholic Church, when women, particularly say a girl who's been raped or who's had incest committed on her, then discovering that unmarried men from the Catholic hierarchy are telling her what she can and can't do. That's as people now say, the optics of that are pretty bad.
Optics.
It's very difficult to know where to start with this one. So, okay, well, let's address it then. So, man. So there's 4 men talking about abortion, right? NT Wright, if you don't think it's a man's place to talk about abortion, don't answer the question.
Yes, it would have been better if he hadn't. Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, it's a justifiable position. If you're saying this is difficult to talk about as a man, well, shut up then.
Yeah. again, the theologian, like, one can imagine that Adam might have been thinking about the optics of a man telling a woman what to do, what she can and can't do, when he stood by silently and watched her take the fruit. I think he kind of revealed, although he didn't explicitly tell us, I think there he revealed a little bit about what is actually holding up, well, what he'd subjected his thinking to in order to come to this position. Because there is a sense in which, of course, like, we have absolutely no idea about just what it takes for a woman to bring a baby into the world. Labor and childbirth.
I mean, we've both watched it.
Both watched it, yeah. And it is...
But both completely, having watched it twice in both our cases.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but I looked at that and went, I'm glad that wasn't me.
Yes. Yeah. And and just amazed by my wife on both occasions. And yeah, it's awesome, not in the sense of like, oh, cool, but it's a really truly awesome thing, and just just astonishing that that's ever happened before. It's incredible. But it's so gnarly, and so I understand that, like, we don't have a clue about the sacrifices that a woman makes to bring a baby into the world. However, do know, well, so the identity markers that we have, unfortunately, we've got a bad hand, haven't we? But
both of us are about as evil as it gets.
Do you have any claims to like minority?
I don't think so. I'm about as Anglo-Saxon as it gets, as far as I can see. And obviously a man and a Christian and English. Rough.
You're not left-handed, are you?
No, dominant-handed as well. Yeah. I'm bald, though. Hairlines are receding pretty well. So, I don't know. Does that give me any victim points? I could do with some.
Scraping the barrel a little bit. But... So, morality does not change. And your ability to speak about morality does not change depending on your gender or the identity markers that you have, which is what he seems to be.
I think he wants a way out, if I'm totally honest, Peter.
Yeah.
I just think he wants a way out. He wants to be able to say, and to be honest, I probably shouldn't even really be talking about this. The problem with that is, so I guess from when he talks about the Catholic Church perspective, right? So we're not Catholic. He's not a Catholic. However, if you are a Catholic, completely voluntarily, you're not being forced to be a Catholic, and you're putting yourself under the authority of your priest, therefore the bishop, therefore the Pope, all the way up. It's not a secret that the leaders of the Catholic Church are unmarried men. So if you're going to put yourself under the shepherding of unmarried men, then the moral shepherding comes from unmarried men. I mean, where else do you want it to come from? If you, as a theologian, a moral thinker, are not prepared to take the lead on a moral issue, again, shut up then. I think, you can read my piece on the Off Party Line Substack, but I rail against men who've decided it's not our issue. Because they don't want to think it through. They don't want to have the fight. They don't want to be disliked. They don't want to be shouted at. They don't want to be... And it's not nice. It isn't nice. However, what level of uprising against injustice has ever happened without men taking the lead and being willing to make sacrifices for that greater good?
Right. Like, do you think Wilberforce was perhaps tempted to worry about optics when he preached before Parliament, when, no one agreed with him? Just this whole, do we want, if you were to, I don't know, I think, and if we think about So I think I'm at a point where I can't figure out how much of our silence on this topic is self-censorship, or how much of it is that we actually don't believe it anymore. And
I don't even know which one of those two is more alarming.
Well, yeah, precisely. But I just think I think it's a minority position now, our position that abortion is never acceptable under any circumstances. And if you're a pastor and you're not speaking about this issue, then your people in your congregation are being discipled by people like NT Wright at best.
Yeah. Worrying. Okay, let's carry on.
That's part of the same system of male bullying, which we have to avoid like the plague. However, having said that, I do think that that sense of respect for God's creation in all its rich variety is the primary starting point, even if we then have to say with sorrow and a certain sense of this is the least worst option in this situation, that there may be some cases of exceptions. That's about as far as I can get at the moment. And as I say, I'm very much aware of just how sensitive this topic is politically, sociologically, as well as ethically.
I think that's a good way to put it, Tom. Christians and Jews have traditionally been pro-life. I mean, that's why we normally reject the death penalty. That's why we oppose, euthanizing our grandparents the minute they start losing the keys to the car. This is why we don't like the idea of, doing horrible procedures that will hurt human beings. Yeah. And in some
I can think of one horrible procedure that hurts human beings. Can you?
Right. And he talked there about recognizing the rich variety of human life.
Right. Does that include the deformed?
Yeah. What kind of variety are we talking about?
Yeah. What is rich variety of human life? Interesting. Let's see if we can finish this out.
Jurisdictions, it's horrible to think they're even talking about infanticide, because people have pointed out, I mean, if you're going to have abortion all the way up to birth, how does going 6 inches down the birth canal really change anything legally? Yeah. So it seems so arbitrary. And I think there are some philosophers like, Peter Singer, who is one among many, who have argued for the legitimacy not just of late-term abortion, but even infanticide, which for me really is a symbol of moving from a Christian age back to a neo-pagan world. But Tom, like you said, it really is a difficult topic, and we can't assume that this is a black and white answer when every case is going to be somehow different.
Sure.
We've got another question.
Okay, so that's the end of the clip. So just to wrap up there, as he wraps up, he's talking about so Peter Singer, I don't know his position on this, but let's take what he said as wrote, that Peter Singer believes that essentially we can engage in infanticide. I'm assuming that means he said something like post-birth, quote-unquote abortion, which is obviously murder at that point, can be morally justified. If that's the case, Peter Singer is a moral disgrace. But I know who Peter Singer is. So, and he is a prominent moral thinker and philosopher. So he is in the culture making an argument. Now, if these guys are saying then that's horrible, well, I have to say, guys, you are not equipped to have an argument with Peter Singer on abortion.
Yeah. And their position, although they might be coming at it from a very different angle, their position still results in dead babies. And yet they are bearing the name of Christ. And I think this just really needs to be called out. And, it's a public video they've put out, and it needs this position, their entire approach to this needs to just be condemned, because it's like they've said, it's actually they've recognized abortion as a pagan practice, and in principle we should be opposed to it, but that in practice sometimes we might have to do pagan things. It's astonishing.
Yeah, and it has to be said, so NT Wright took a lot of flack for this. It was only 2 months ago, actually, that this happened. And in the interim, it spawned a lot of reaction videos and a lot of people expressing serious disappointment. To be totally fair, I've not seen whether he's responded to any of that. I don't know whether he's repented of anything he's said. We don't know. So just to be clear, if you know of any reaction, we'd love to hear it. But based on just what we've heard today, it's seriously worrying. The most gracious and charitable I can be with that is that it's extremely muddled.
Yes.
It's very confused. It's inconsistent. And it does not seem to comport with what I would consider a biblical Christian worldview. Apart from the fact that, as you pointed out as we were discussing it, he didn't even refer to the Bible once.
Never once.
He's a theologian. He's not gone to the scriptures to base anything he's decided on, which tells me that he's being driven by the world and pagan culture, essentially, to come up with his worldview. Very, very concerning, and we hope that NT Wright repents of that. Before we wrap up, I want to just quickly run through another clip with you, Peter. So, talking about abortion and people who might be against it, we have in the UK, in Great Britain, have laws that our American cousins, it blows their minds, this stuff, right? You try and tell this stuff to an American and they go, that can't be happening in Britain.
Right.
This is exactly what's happening. I think they're starting to wake up to this, actually. You can see a lot of people Americans online starting to realize like what's going on in Britain. What are our ridiculous cousins getting on with at the moment? This is an example we're going to look at of where, so free speech particularly is majorly under threat, despite the fact that Sir Keir Starmer would say that it's never been in better health. And this will show it'll show you about free speech, modern UK policing, and the combination of that. So let's just watch the whole clip and then we'll react to it.
What are you here for today?
Physically, I'm just standing here.
Okay. Why here of all places? I know you don't live nearby.
But this is an abortion centre.
Okay, that's why you're stood. Is you standing here part of the protest?
No, I'm not protesting.
Are you praying?
I might be praying in my head.
So I'll ask you once more, will you voluntarily come with us now to the police station for me to ask you some questions about today and other days where there are allegations that you've broken public space protection?
If I've got a choice, then no.
Okay, well then you're under arrest on suspicion of failing to comply with the Public Spaces Protection Order, which is under the Antisocial Behaviour Crime Policing Act 2014. Now, of course, you do not have to say anything. It may harm your defence if you didn't mention one question, something which you later on in court, anything you do say may be given. Do you understand the caution?
I do.
That was a woman standing on a sidewalk silently being arrested.
Yeah. I love the way she dealt with it, you know. Yeah. And
that is what's happening in Britain. Now, for any of you who are going to argue and go, well, it's because of this and it's because of that, you need to think about what this means potentially for your freedoms, the freedoms that you don't think are ever going to come under threat. Because you're right, aren't you? You've got the correct opinions. So you're never going to face this.
Yeah. And why do you think that the boundary of those, what are they called? Buffer zones?
Buffer zones, yeah.
Why do we think that the boundaries are not going to encroach upon other things?
So this is under as the police officer says there, the Public Spaces Protection Order or Act, Public Spaces Protection. And in that particular piece of legislation, it describes a buffer zone around abortion centres. So anywhere where abortions are being carried out, there is a zone around it which is in public space where you are not allowed to. Now, I understand that you're not allowed to protest. That's bad enough. Okay, that's disallowed. You should be allowed to protest. However, is that woman protesting? She's standing on a sidewalk silently with her hands in her pockets. What threat is she?
It's quite upsetting though, Mark, isn't it?
It's really upsetting when I see women.
I was a bit upset watching
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Look at that stripy skirt. It's so that I can see 2 police officers. I actually think there's another one.
I think there is, yeah.
There's another one behind this chap here, isn't there? So that's 3 police officers and a police car. 3 police officers whose parents, I'm sure, are incredibly proud of them. Who I'm sure, Pete, when they were going through, when they were growing up and said, what do you want to be when you're older? I want to be a police officer. Why? So that I can arrest women with their hands in their pockets standing by a sign that says Station Road.
Who may or may not be praying.
Then, Pete, here's what I want to do as a police officer. I want to question them as to what's going on in their head, right? So there's something called the liberal wheel of happening, right? So I can't remember who coined this, and I think it's like 4 stages of happening, and it's something like, that's not happening, that's a conspiracy theory. Yeah. And then the second stage is, well, it might be happening, but it's not that big of a deal. The third stage is, it is happening, and it's a good thing, actually. And the fourth stage is, you're a bigot for thinking this shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? That's the liberal phase of happening. And everything goes through all 4 phases. You are here, stage 3 to stage 4. You were to say to someone not that many years ago, it is going to be an arrestable offence in the UK to stand on the street with your hands in your pockets saying nothing.
It's incredible. And this has happened multiple times as well, hasn't it? Yeah. You know what we should do, Mark? We should move into an abortion buffer zone, and we could just, those 2 houses there, we could just sit on our porches and have a conversation about abortion.
Are those houses included in, I guess they're not public spaces, so maybe they're not included. But I think in Scotland...
What if you were within earshot of...
Well, that's true. I think in Scotland, it actually either did go through or potentially went through. I don't know the details of it, so forgive me if I'm making that up. But there was something around the houses that are within some of these protected zones are part of it.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, wow. Unbelievable. So the police officer says to her, are you praying?
What's it to you?
Again, I'm warning you, liberals. I'm warning you. You don't think your freedoms are under attack by this woman being arrested. You think it's fine. You are so naive.
Yeah.
People are so naive. She's not protesting. She is standing praying. Here's my question. What if she was praying for the women? What if she was praying that in support of abortion? Would that be allowed?
Yeah. Well, there was a man, I can't remember his name, but he was arrested for praying for his deceased child who was a victim of abortion.
Wow.
And that's against the law somehow.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. This is what our police officers are doing. You know, when you get burgled and you can't have anything done, when your phone gets snatched and it's got location on it, you know exactly where it is and the police don't do anything about it. You know where they are? There they are. They're there. 3 of them arresting a woman for praying in her head. Praying in her head.
Incredible.
They put her in handcuffs and they took her away in that car. It's absolutely unbelievable. And this is where we are up to. And the dearth of pushback on this is unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
If you cannot tell me that you're for free speech if you're happy with stuff like this. The whole point of free speech is to protect speech that you don't like. You don't need free speech for speech that you like or for things that you think is fine. You need it for the difficult speech. She's not even saying anything, Pete. She's not even said a word, and she's been approached by 3 police officers.
You'd be worried of like sitting down on a park bench and just nodding off with your eyes closed, wouldn't you, in case.
What if you accidentally prayed in your dream?
You know, you've talked about getting a T-shirt that says "Clump of Cells" on it, haven't you?
Yes.
What would happen if you walked just through an abortion buffer zone with a T-shirt like that, or a little sticker on your car?
Could you be? It might be said that you're protesting. You might not even know it's there.
Yeah, this is the problem. Obviously, we're the astonishing thing is being arrested for praying, but we shouldn't be arguing from there. It should be a right to protest. That the fact that, like you said before, the fact that is no longer that's now illegal is you can't even protest the killing of the innocents.
No. Well, this has been a longer second episode than the first one, and we've got into the thorny topics straight away. Look, we don't take these things lightly. These are serious conversations that we need to be having. These are serious conversations that society needs to be having. Abortion for a long time was a settled issue in the UK. You couldn't get anyone to talk about it. I think the amendment not long ago brought it back into public consciousness, but then it did die away again quite quickly, which is a bit sad. Look, you might hate us for what we've said. You might think we are evil, horrible people. Fine. But please engage with this. Please do what we've said to do. If you don't know what's involved in one, you should look it up. You should know what you're backing. But yeah, the hard cases are always willing to be discussed. So we are going to wrap it up for episode 2 of Off the Party Line. Thank you so much for joining me, Peter. Please do like this video and subscribe to the channel. We've got more episodes coming your way, and we will see you in the next one.
See ya.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like that, please do remember to give us a nice big thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more episodes that are coming soon, please subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more coming your way.